야, 되네. 도말 남바도 참마라. 대 시도 다시 될래. 대지지가 인세.
First, I wanted to say good afternoon to everybody.
되네 차반도 딱경가서 잡지 잡주는 뭐지가 된chút 다 통동보리 된 초바들라. 내 라마 손으로 뭐지당 되네 라마 징밋 되네 달도마몽 보편득 참말라 배 들지체스.
So first, I wanted to wish everyone a good afternoon. And now on this auspicious occasion of gathering to practice in honor of Venerable Gyatrul Rinpoche's Parinirvana, the first year anniversary, I wanted to say Tashi Delek and greetings to everyone, including Lama Sonam Rinpoche, Lama Jigme, and everyone who is assembled here in this mandala.
되네 다 고촌드네 시도 지금 가샤샤 지금 잡주스 젠득 내가 샤시가 만들다 이나 삽자 마통 바탐식 된다네 지금 샤게 인스가 가시스.
And so I was asked to speak a little this afternoon, and really I don't know how to teach, but I will say a few things since I was requested.
되네 다 sar바즈 첸남바가 마고 지즈다 마시바즈 첸남발라지야 측지가 요 말했어. 첸남바가 마시바도 마고 바직 sar바직 내 첸남발라지 측지가 요 말했어.
There's
Nothing new.
nothing. Oh, I see. It's ironic. So really, I have nothing new to say. So nothing new or nothing that you haven't heard before, except for the translator.
되게 이나영 다 지금 아주 가리 난드니 첸남바요 바 청마든 다 라마 강마 강치 강마 강성 때문에 되네데 약을 좁아 첨보니 막 년투고 타바야 주는 정말 로송 진행 몽 점용칸 딱딱랜드스.
All of you have many accomplished and realized lamas, and you have heard many teachings, even including the teachings of Ati Yoga, and you are practicing many high practices.
이나 직친학 사랑 오마래 요나 당제 당아던더니 영나 따통네 적 사랑 오마 당아지 아주 주 원도라든지 자양주 투맘년칸 요서 그랬어.
But also maybe there are some new people who really have not heard a lot of Dharma before. Maybe you don't know about the preliminary practices even.
되네 강따리 영도 땅아 꿈용의 툼용의 대소 있나는 땅에 대런 그 지정도 장소 그 철도 인지 되네 땅아 꿈암용 제가 있나는 영 직체나 판디즈 토나 당시.
And so I'm going to teach on some beginning topics today. And if you've heard these before, then please just consider this to be a refresher. But for those of you who are new, perhaps this will be very useful.
되네 대런 가릴랍긴스 나게 로르독 남바지 지금 도지산도 시작인지.
Today I will be teaching on a brief explanation of the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma.
되네 다 아주 토므로 로르독 남바지 제 로르독 제조도 간다자 하고건레제나 대 로르독 제조도 아주 롱암바드 영덕비 람쇼러 독건레스.
And so first off, when we say the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, what does that mean? To turn or to reverse the mind, it means that we are reversing from a negative mind, we are reversing to a correct or authentic mind or view or way of thinking.
가르레즈나 산지고 송요레 아주 셈진 쓰던 쓰이나 대바 문동 컨스지가 요 말레스. 등거는 돈 컨스지가 요 말레스. 이나요 대반 돈나요 대바 거지 give up the machine. They merge dinger mando nayang, they dinger ponchik and Jim merge at the spawn machine. They are monk beyond the children.
And so the Buddha teaches that there is no sentient being to be found who does not wish for happiness. There is no sentient being to be found who does not try to avoid suffering. But at the same time, not understanding the causes of happiness, which is our virtue, then sentient beings are not able to obtain happiness, not understanding the causes of suffering, which is non-virtue. Sentient beings are unable to avoid suffering.
sim 그 삼지 등 샤와 듭지니까 다 신실로고 성요레스.
And so therefore our wishes and our actions are in opposition to each other.
짐센 딘라 강도 신이 띵아서 롱남바 나츠고 삼바나 삼조든 드문턴체 머트체 그지디 하랍록고레스.
And so for this reason, we have to find a way to reverse or turn this negative mindset that does not understand how to accomplish our wishes.
딘데 로르독 남바지든 아소고니 정니 그 추바 남버 떡바즈 척고니 종티 다 로르독 남바지드 그 아소 심데 영니 영드시 마브장아 스타니 탑고요 마린 드고요 마레스.
And so for a Dharma practitioner, if we do not continuously again and again bring to mind the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma, if we do not have these as our constant companion, we will not accomplish anything.
로르독 남자 하고와 잔즈그 판스자와니니 토코 마레스.
하고와
잔그.
Merely understanding what are the four thoughts will not really be of any benefit.
대 로르독 남바지다레레 진다나 삼롭 동네 더런 거질라저 딘다 냠슬롱네 테네데 판토용 그레스.
And so we must think very, very carefully about each one of the four thoughts and really bring it into our mind and into our understanding, and then it will truly benefit us.
딘다이 단 로르독 남바지오다레레 진다나 냠슬롱 런거질 정 딘다인티티 런거질 종보드 갈리 마라티 지정 트라노티 지티즈 마라 창도 그레마토 랑아가서 로르독 남지즈 샤시바 잠즈 동능아서 하고와 잠즈 그아서 지 자니니 뜻고요 마레스.
And so if we carefully consider each one of these four thoughts and contemplate them and really allow them to enter our mind and our understanding, then slowly our minds will become more peaceful and more tamed. But otherwise, if we just understand the basic idea of the four thoughts and leave it at that, then there will be no benefit.
데나 그 로르독 남바지드는 추 탐칫 그 다스자반다 어찌르요네스 로르독 남지즈 마이니 종티 가서 생글라 님중제 지스티우 타비오 마레스 님중 라웨즈 마치나 가서 추 드바 창마든 직tin 추제 근로야 막도 타라당 탐진시 밀진이든 로토고요 마레스.
And so without the four thoughts that turn the mind are really the root of all Dharma. Without them, we will not be able to cultivate an attitude of renunciation or turning away from samsara. And if we don't have that, there will be no way that we could practice any Dharma at all. And so they are really indispensable for any Dharma practice. And so the first of these four is the precious human rebirth, which is difficult to obtain, and you have heard about this teaching many times. Gondola.
담저그 밀리드 토가야데 하고니 나서 드림드부터 간다지 통고는 이제나
Drevo. The result of it.
Result of this namlin.
Ale. So if the precious human rebirth is extremely difficult to obtain, and if we don't obtain it, there will be no way to get the results of our practice.
야, 다 맞죠. 담저그 밀리 림보치지 조인데 돈 디송고는 림보치지 인즈 당아 리틴데 조도 차버찬즈 인즈 삼조다 하고니 다 가르치고스나 다다 위슈 동고레세. 다다 옆보즈 비슈 동고레세.
And so if we understand what is a precious human rebirth and we come to realize that our own rebirth is extremely precious, oh wow, this is a very sacred, precious thing. This body is a very special support. Then we will want to make use of it.
대대양 화트문로 문로농로라 르지거고니 네퍼카바 회거고니 네퍼카바 증거고니 네퍼카바 할리바 모송요레스.
가르세.
담저거 밀리데 르니카위 츠르텔라 르지 회 증
Oh, Lhasa. In Gyatrul Rinpoche's The Words of My Perfect Teacher, it explains how difficult it is to achieve this human birth, and they explain it in terms of the cause, in terms of examples, and in terms of numbers.
Drimed
And so we need to, there's no time to actually go through each of these points that's explained in the Words of My Perfect Teacher, but you need to understand these, and you need to understand what are the 18 freedoms and endowments. And not only understanding them, but then asking yourself, do I have all 18 of the freedoms and endowments? Some human beings do not have all 18. For some, it's not complete. So we have to first look and see, do we have a complete and fully endowed precious human rebirth? And if we find that we do, then we should rejoice and understand that it is important to practice with this opportunity. If we don't have all 18, then we should try to improve that situation.
Tene tamjur nipa kawat hakone te rono soso ko metsezi je tongone chikr nipa kawaz rende to tondog chimbo rende yibjing ko noruli lagba je rende mumetsen dela tene ta nekko ko dewa da yendam tatuk sarje ko kompong di tonen tab ko samjizuk ta ychtang ne ten rasche tgores.
So we have to understand what is a precious human rebirth. We have to understand our own human life, how difficult it is to achieve this kind of life, how incredibly meaningful it is to have this kind of life, the fact that it is truly like a wish-fulfilling jewel, the fact that this kind of rebirth and situation can not only bring about our temporary happiness, we can bring about what we wish for and need for, but it has the potential to bring us to the state of fully awakened Buddhahood. Next, we have to understand the impermanence of life. And so we have to understand that we have a precious human rebirth, but is it stable? Is it reliable? Is it permanent? It is not. And so before this situation changes, before this human birth is destroyed, then we must make use of it as best we can. And so we have to understand, even just looking at our life, as we get older and older, it gets more difficult to do things. This is just general knowledge. Our minds become less clear, our ability to focus and concentrate and do what we want to do becomes more difficult. And so wherever we are at, we should try our best to practice Dharma from the very beginning, from our youth, and then through the rest of our life. And so in looking at it from that perspective, we should be thinking, well, whenever I have free time in this particular very precious circumstance, I should be using that to accumulate merit and to purify non-virtue, because this life truly is impermanent and every moment is precious. And so the thought of impermanence is sort of like a whip, like when someone wants their horse to run very fast and so they hit them. In the same way, our whip that will encourage us to practice is the thought of the impermanence of this life. And so we must continuously meditate on the impermanence of this life. Then we must think of the faults of samsara. So we must meditate on the faults of samsara because we need to reverse our grasping to the three realms of samsara. And so we have great grasping and attachment to samsara and the activities of samsara. And so it's so important that we reverse that grasping, because otherwise, if we continue to grasp and follow after samsaric things, then the circle of samsara, korwa, cyclic existence, will just continue going and going and going. So we must reverse this situation. We have to understand that samsara has no essence. And that all the activities of samsara are truly useless, and then that will help us to reverse our view of things. So we have to understand the nature of samsara. We have to examine the different realms, such as the hell realms, the different states where there's suffering, and then even examining the states where there seems to be some happiness. It's just a temporary illusion of happiness, because the fact is that even that happiness is still imbued with and causing the causes of suffering.
Korwala tab devas yok some devas to be chit and the chimong kable mong japko and reta tona to go dungur chit and dungur mentame pamyara nansonsma don't get out of the gores. The soul of San Lojamo, donating coraling in Chergores.
And so sentient beings engage in cyclic existence wishing for happiness. They try so many things, trying so hard to find happiness in samsara. But really all they ever accomplish is endless, continual suffering. And so if we start to understand this nature, then we can start to understand how to deal with this problem. And so the fourth thought that turns the mind to the Dharma is the thought of karma, cause and effect. And so the Buddha and Buddha Shakyamuni and his followers and all the great masters have given many, many teachings about the law of cause and effect. Basically, the idea is that if we do something virtuous, then happiness will be the result. If we engage in non-virtuous actions, then suffering will inevitably be the result.
Jipshu to Dalir Jimdris. Garizina lead Jimdizijot, Korunga, Kata Chenanda, Nyamchon Yananda, Mepshupo Inanda, Orwo Inanda, Kaina, Korunga Lake Garisana, the Garam Mendojimato, Mepshupo down the Tegate Orwo, the name of Top Chimbo down the Chongchong Titla, ever sound your Maris, Korunga gave out to that, 그 지가 오르고 같이 있나 그 레우도 되어 하는 거요레스 되네데 그런 지가 리송고 나는 슈보이나 그 간데 톱 첨보이나 그 머게가 좀 나고 레우 등금 좀 왔다 가는지 막또 처음은 톰보리 톱 첨보리고 좀 레우 등금 좀 말이지 될라요 말이지 짐데제 이제 할래 빠져 모레스 정모레스 정된스가 짐된다 정된스 요 말이지.
And so, if we think about the law of cause and result, if you think about laws in this world, every country, of course, has its own laws. But really, the very best law there is the law of cause and result, because it applies equally to everyone. And so, it doesn't matter if someone is rich or poor or famous, or if someone is high or low, none of that matters. It doesn't matter what your station is or where you find yourself in life. If you do virtuous things, you'll experience happiness. If you do non-virtuous things, you'll experience suffering. And so even if the lowest, most poor and pathetic or reviled person does virtuous things, they will find happiness. And even if the most rich and famous and amazing, wonderful person does negative things, they will experience suffering. And so this law is applied completely equally across the board. There are no exceptions. There's no way out. It's just, it is what it is. And it applies to everyone. And so this is, this is like a definitive truth. So it's like, definitive, or it's something that we can count on.
딘디데 다 영카시고 삼로당나 리 짐비지지도 소다 ngaso nangba sangji ge shatang jiri sangji ge nangba la yichi jena len jinre yoji tang jamba ge yi machina mejin raw tenda arisa tenda sani mares ta khorom chuni des ko den nangba sangje ba innayanda mennayanda ko yichinayanda machinayanda ta khorom 제가 chuni de chago yores ta hoiji jang ngaso 네 요라 네가 사원지 살았다나 되네 그런 거치 르드 쪼드 시르데 소야포 존인데 콤 니가 야라체 그랬어 뜻제데 그런 거 춘니 스템들 그 춘니도랴 딘디 그런 거이 칭칸이나 이 체그레 고체그레 제나 아체용 그랬어 가시가 고체그 말인가 이 미칠라나 아체용 그랬어 알리 짐레서 짓된다랬어 대장 이 체나다 마체난다 너나 쓰던세나 그런 거 된다 그 넘버만 받을 사람이 바레스.
And so it's not, some people think that the law of cause and effect, or karma, really only applies to Buddhists. So if you're a Buddhist and you believe in karma, then you have karma, but if you're not Buddhist and you don't believe in karma, you don't. But that's not the case at all. The fact is, karma is just the way things are. It's the nature of things, the law of cause and effect. And so it applies to everyone, every being, in every situation. So whether you're Buddhist or not, whether you believe in it or not, you still have karma and you still will experience the effects of karma. And it is just like planting a seed of barley. If you put water on it and you fertilize it, then a barley sprout will grow. And so this is like having all the conditions assembled, the barley grows, whether you believe in it or not. Even if you say this is not a barley seed, no barley will grow, it still will grow if you give it the conditions. And so in the same way, whether we believe it or not, and even if we deny it, the law of cause and effect is true, and it will bear fruit for everyone.
텐다레즈 텐다인데 리 짐데테 소라 즈모 이 삼럽 땅네 테네 게와 अर्गेवी अर्गेवा त काचे डबथमना तेला 지그 डब지동나 되니 머게와 총총 진나테 스폰 어떻게 스타치도 대런 게 제고레스.
If we think really carefully about the law of cause and effect, then we will really come to see that we should accumulate as much virtue. Every chance we have for virtue, we should accumulate virtue. And even the smallest non-virtue, we should avoid.
텐다 가리치니리제는 당아소 머게와 등걸날 간칸 요 말이야. 게와라 머간칸 요 말이야. 또인디디 ngaso 리동 리 짐레다 하고니데 머게와 그 등걸 그지 머게와도 스pon지 차터 총 어째 그래. 데네데 데비 지 게와도 차통 총도 르병 그래스. 그 짐레다랑 여보 이스총 제 그래. 짐레다 스총 여보잖아. 다드 다 추바즈죠 또 영터 바즈 쳐란데스.
And so There is no one who wishes for suffering. There is no one who doesn't want happiness. Therefore, we must understand and give up the causes of suffering, and we must understand and adopt the causes of happiness. And so, understanding the law of cause and effect, we will see that we need to keep this basic discipline of following the law of cause and effect. And if we really do this carefully, that is what makes us a Dharma practitioner.
Tindi ngatu shawa kang tang kang ina ngatu top dot na ta tang pu tir jit de gora ta te tang stik ba re chang ma ngatu dewan don na ta dewa jong che jit kang in sam lop tang ne te tir jit de tang pop cha te ne te de gore ma tur jit me dem dewu yong khanyan ma res.
So no matter what we're trying to accomplish, what we are trying to, what results we're trying to get, we always must cultivate that cause, right? We need the cause of something to get the result. And so, in this case, we need the causes of happiness. That is what we should be pursuing. That's what we should be concerned with, because without a cause, you can't produce a result.
Tena rezi, tena lordong namba zhida terezi, hena on di zhida ina, menna chiga longa lola yongni yongda samlopta yongni yongda zhongni. Te rangar jilla ngimjong to yahaza ngipar da chirgo rezi, ngimjong to machina tena nga chu tir jiga chiga churgewa kangtang kang drupna ta lhami lhadang miyu dewa jong chiga timi sonuri jirgari makto tarwa tang tamjin chimi kompongari jib tukuyo ma rezi. Tindi tangpo nga chu ngimjong zi dana yung tangpa zhubji da haliba kar chimboris, nga tsur zhokpa chimbozi jo chen dishtanga sarji chekar jitre tani inang, zhokchinga chiyi kangdang kangina tangpo taga de ngondo disong lordong namjini drogo yore makto chik, daso tsangma meda tangpo nigar zhokchin taka zhiksazi chang yo maris, inang da chik tenda jiwa ngonzhonga jiwa ngonniga zheng tsarni tenda ina chik karkir yosigirisi, makto da chik 마서 공부 람리나 막도 그 잠바 총마든 님종도 소 이름지 예란 존에 대해서 공공고늘이 대막도 참메도 그러나 타크는 직사장 요 말이스.
And so the four thoughts that turn the mind are extremely important and necessary, and we should constantly be thinking of them and training our mind in them again and again. And really, if we want to accomplish any virtue that will lead to the state of liberation and complete enlightenment, we must start with the four thoughts that turn the mind, because they allow us to cultivate true renunciation or a turning away from samsara. And without that attitude, no matter what kind of virtue we create, it will only create the causes to be born as a god or a human or some temporary state of happiness within samsara. But it will not create the causes for a full awakening. And so renunciation is extremely important. And when we talk about the Dzogchen or Ati Yoga teachings, the very highest teachings, of course, they are a method to achieve the state of fully awakened Buddhahood. But any Dzogchen teachings must first begin with Ngondro. You'll see every Dzogchen teaching and practice there is begins with the preliminary practices, and especially with the four thoughts that turn the mind. And so there's no way to just go directly to the main Dzogchen practices. You always have to start with the four thoughts. Of course, there are the occasional examples of those who had practiced in their previous life, and so in this life they're considered to be of the highest faculties. And they are able, perhaps, to go directly to the main Dzogchen practice without the preliminaries. But that's just a very rare case, and it's really only because they already trained in these things in previous lives. But for the rest of us, we have to start with the four thoughts that turn the mind.
Tenda rezi, teni tanga tso lordong namba zhila teni taga ngimjong yaha zi semla chetamna dir jini teni te shangchugu sem gom teni di tsongo na rangar jila shangchugu sem che teni te zogba chenpo gom gona tsudu gom gona teni nga tso ski ji damub zhinta na te rinba zhinta yara chemto rangar nyamla yang jirga ndo tabgari yon rezi.
And so based on the four thoughts that turn the mind, then we can cultivate renunciation. And then based on that, we can cultivate the mind of bodhicitta. And then slowly, we can train in each of the levels of Dharma. And that will slowly lead us to the Ati Yoga or Dzogchen practices, just like a staircase will slowly lead you higher and higher. And so that's really the way to train.
Jimbarza ni logzena kamle khapore kajida tabgare da inang jin jitin chuje tila chukti 진창라 하라 호세 라전 로탑송나테 빼어보치고요레스 직진 추제란 전발 호세 처마탑나 당아서 강난 직진 추제 따다 상로 땅송나 추즈 좀나테 강로 좀나 직진 추제 따다 상로 땅송나 그장 추즈근 직탑고요 말했어 그건 직진 추제라 창조고요레스 창마다 하라 따살라 추인나 돈란 직진 추제 척요레스
And so, as we develop a mind of renunciation, then we can slowly reverse our attachment to the 8 worldly concerns. Now, perhaps some can just give up the 8 worldly concerns entirely, but for most of us, as we contemplate the 4 thoughts, our grasping to the 8 worldly concerns just slowly begins to relax a little bit and to loosen. And so just that is very, very good, extremely beneficial. Because as we're able to sort of loosen that, then we can really turn towards the Dharma. No matter what Dharma, what level of Dharma that you practice, if you are attached to the 8 worldly concerns, then that will really not be true Dharma or a cause for liberation. So if you look on the outside, someone may look like they're a very good Dharma practitioner, but inside, if they are full of the 8 worldly concerns, then they're really not practicing Dharma at all.
야 텐다 인디데 nga chondna yo pa chama tna ta nang ba sangje la ta pa yongkhin tni chu nam par ta ba sa ndwa samkhan tni te jingoni thara dang thanchin chembu kompong la singru atwa samkhan tak tak yin re te yin nibjong te ta nga cho lam kha ta manor wa go neres lam kha ta nor song na tni te ndkyo ma re te lam kha te sten tang ko song tongpo de kan ra chirgo niba de kare chirgo samba de kare chirgo dharmba te on nor nyan ma res 동본이 이제 저 동보던 이바 정말 휘줄네 되니 친구자 통수나 그 야진 로트고요 말해서 인디데 럼바 진데제 단 되게 마노라스 지나데 어떻게 약보숑요레스.
And so all of us are Buddhists. We have faith in Buddhism and we're trying to follow the Dharma. And so if we are really going to follow the Dharma to achieve true authentic Dharma that brings about the state of liberation from samsara and the state of complete omniscience or fully awakened Buddhahood, then we must have the proper path, the correct path. If our path is incorrect, it won't lead to that result. And so we have to understand how does the path work and what are the stages of the path. So what do we need first? What do we need second? What do we need third? What are the stages? How do we follow it? And so if we don't understand the stages and we aren't able to follow them, then there's no way that we're going to progress.
딘다 냠len 집정나 더 멋집지스 싸우는 인기요 말이서 창마 홍마가 지부 담바 몽포승 디미즈가 땠니 되니 창마가 저바 토 그 성을 집 상치고 살락석 딘다 몽포 제정들은 가서 창마한테 특히 오늘에 창마가 존지제 멋집고 잡을 마도 존지제 딘다 지나가서 창마 딜람난 좋다고요래 세팅디 창마가 마서 냠럽제네 대 샘숙제네 대 딜람난 좋다고 달고래스.
And so there's no one who can't practice. There's no one who's just not able to, who doesn't have the ability to practice. In fact, all of us have practiced in many of our past lives in order to get to this situation that we have now to do Dharma. And so it's certain that as we have progressed to this point, we will be able to progress step by step to the state of fully awakened Buddhahood. That is a certainty. If we are diligent and if we try and really exert ourselves, then we certainly can achieve awakening. And that is what I have to say for today.